Hey, welcome to a bright and wild layout. So starting off using the watercolor pencils, I just randomly select hearts and color them in. So I'm using this water brush, which means that it spreads out the color, but also it pulls up some of the color into the bristles, so you can move it around, get different shades of the color by either, using the pencil straight on or just using the color that's been picked up by the brush. So I just wanted to leave this in so you guys get an idea of, how I ran the colors so that it didn't look like a pattern was going on, but also the technique. So it took me a little while to get the hang of the technique using the water brush and the pencils, but it worked out so well once I worked it out. I was able to do a few layouts with mixed media on it. So you can see that the colours come out so brightly from the pigment in the watercolour pencils. The choice of the photo and how the layout all transpired. So you start a page. I either start with a photo and then go with it and go, oh yep, what do I want to, where do I want to go with design? Or I do it this way and go, I want to watercolour this paper, and that's where I'm starting, and I'll photo for it. So I, have a play with this watercolour, and then I go through my little stash of photos and pick out one that suits it for sure. So adding lots of this purple. I really love the purple. In fact, because there's not much or really any purple in the kit, I wasn't able to use it, but never fear. The watercolour pencils will remain on my one of my mixed media shelves so that I can use them in a few layouts. Same with this yellow. There's a couple of tones of it, like, not heat. But I like the way it makes, like I've added most of the colours on this heart background, and it makes it pop out as a bright layout background rather than, clashing colours. I think if you're gonna, add a rainbow kind of a look, you want to add a majority of the photos, I was going to say. Crazy. And this is one of the other nice colours that are in the water. Well, they're all nice, but I really like this tealy blue. Tealy bluey green, I guess, is what teal is. So, but you can see it's just really simple and just really effective. So you don't need to muck around too much. It's really therapeutic, actually, sort of like, those colouring in books that people for adults, so that you can just play around with colour and not think too much, and a mindfulness kind of activity. So in between each colour, I'm just squirting some of the water out onto some paper towel or onto the table until all the colour's gone. Sort of like washing your brush, but because it's full of water in that tube of the paintbrush, being able to squirt it out and dab it means that the colour comes out a lot quicker than what happens when you are normally painting. Oh, that was cold. I just put in my drink bottle that's half ice and half water and just a bit of a fright. So how's everyone enjoying the January kits? By the time you see this video, we'll be almost, or maybe even have seen the reveal of the February kits. So that'll be exciting. It's so nice every month what Steph has decided to spoil us with. But I also like, sometimes that can also be like, oh my gosh, I haven't even kit, or I've barely used it. I really, I'm going to just be hoarding it rather than using it. So it's can be sometimes. But it could also be a kick in the bum that says, oh, this will be next week, or the end of the week or whatever. Why don't I get busy and use the previous month's kit? So yeah, I picked this wild photo of my youngest son, and I'm going to add some photo layers. I'm just letting those hearts dry a bit. It's not working. Dry a bit while I do some photo layers. That's often what I do with mixed media. I work on the background while I'm working on the photo layering with the paper. I'm letting it dry a bit, and then usually if it's not dry by then, I just work around and be careful, because often I'm bothered getting the heat gun and drying it, or definitely not waiting for it. If something needs 24 hours to dry, you can almost 99.999, recurring guarantee that I'm not going to wait those 24 hours. That's just, I don't think I've ever done it. It would very well work, and I know it works for a lot of other people, but I couldn't start a project. Like at this stage, I couldn't walk away and say, I've got to go and do something now. I'll come back to that and still be on the same flow. I feel like that would just be, I'd come back and I'd go, oh, what was I thinking? I do not know what is going on there. So let me know if you've got any tips or tricks, because that'd be interesting to know. Maybe I should just challenge myself and do it, but I don't see it working. I'm more of a, and because I scrap pretty quickly, I scrap, half an hour to 45 minutes and the layout's done. It doesn't seem like it would be my style, but that also hinders me, because then I'm like, I want to scrapbook, but if I scrapbook now, I'm going to be, I'm going to start busting out layouts. I'll get in the groove, and then it'll be 2, 3, 4 hours, and then all of a sudden it's going to be midnight, and I have to be up at 5 o'clock to get ready for work. Like, it just, it's catch-22. Works and hinders at other times, but it's good because I get a lot of time on the weekends, so it's a-okay. I've worked out my scrappy time balance at the end of last year in 2018, and it's working for me. Good thing I don't really have a social life, is what I can say, especially if my kids are not with me. They're with their dad. Anyway, rambling on while I'm creating away. So I've added this big black and white check, sort of like the base of the photo cluster that I added those photo layers on. And I'm just using some of those cut-out sticker titles that we got from the Cocoa Vanilla, but also those lovely gold thickers, and I'm just spelling out shine your weird light bright. And I've added in that little chipboard piece that's like road signs, and then down the bottom cluster an arrow that's chipboard, and then some other tiny words. So that's what's going on so far in the layout. I don't know why I explained everything to you. I'm pretty sure you guys seen what's happening, and we're pretty clued on. But that's apparently how I roll today. So next, I'm just going to try and finish off the layout and see what else I can add to it, and how I'm going to, all those little finishing touches that sort of make your eye happy when you're looking around. So if you first look at a layout, you get the entire package, the impact, and sometimes one little thing, or not even one, but one bold thing stands out. So for this layout, a bit tricky. I would say the background would stick out, those beautiful flowers, and then the title, and then when you're looking around after that, giving it a bit more time for your eyes to settle in and take in everything, you see those little clusters with this, the journaling and the cluster here and the tiny bird there, and that's how your eye visually works to take everything in. Because obviously it's really nice, I think, when you first look at a layout and you're like, oh, that's really pretty, and then you look for a couple of more seconds, or and then you're like, oh, I didn't see that initially. That's a really good idea. I really like how that flows that way, and how that makes that part stand out, or XYZ. Very very philosophical, apparently. I've done 3 voiceovers now in a row, and I think every one I've done a little spiel on design and my thoughts on how things look visually. So if you're interested in that and you haven't watched my video, you're crazy, because you should be watching every single my video. I'm just that awesome. But also, if you are interested in my thoughts on design and how I view things when I'm putting them together, then check them out and listen to the voiceover, because I give my little 2 cents worth each video of this month. You're welcome. If you want my 2 cents on something, definitely ask down below, or check out the pages, and I will definitely give you my 2 cents worth on that. So coming to this, you see I've added the enamel dots, which means that I'm finishing off the layout usually. And I figured it needed a border, and I thought, oh yep, it'll be fine, I'll just add a white border, that way it's not contrasting. But that was just like a waste of paper. It just did nothing to it. It actually sort of made it worse because it wasn't a true border. So instead I'm going through the papers now and trying to work out what I wanted. And this is where it totally changes, and I love the way it all worked out. I fiddled quite a bit, but I was like, I'm not just add one paper as border, I'm going to add two. And then it becomes 3. So there is 4 pages layout, like paper, as joined to be one 12 by 12, and it works so nicely. I like it. It's such a bright, such a wild, such a weird way of doing it, but it works so well. Just works with those watercolor hearts. It works with that title, with that wild photo, and it just is delightful. It's so cool. So you can see now, just having a play with it, so you can, when you're going, if you're thinking about adding a different kind of a border with pattern paper, then just have a play with how it's sitting. And then, you know, if you're having too much of a play, just get over it and then just stick it down and work with it. And that's what I did, because if anyone plays along at home with watching my videos, you'll know that I'm like, yep, yeah, maybe, yeah, nah. And then I'm like, oh, that's just too much fiddling around. Get the tape out or the glue out and get down. And it will all work. You can always pull up paper off the other side of the paper and reposition it if you need to. It's not the end of the world. So I do cut down some of these papers in the background so that they're not all, you know, 12 by 12 papers wasted. But I do cut it down each time to make sure the 12 by 12 outline is apparent when I've added each layer, because you don't, especially when I added this layer, because I don't want it to be like, oh yep, that works really brilliantly, and then I turn it over to make, you know, cut off the excess, and then I'm like, oh, I've cut off half my photo. Like, that probably would not be ideal, especially if you're liking the way the layout looks and the way the photo looks on the layout. It's probably best not to cut into that. I don't know. You let me know. You might think it's okay, that it's going to work for your for your way of scrapbooking. So just sticking down some of the layers just so that I can work it all together. Oh, I didn't cut down that pink. That was naughty. That's lucky I get the paper add-on kit so that I get doubles of all the papers. But yeah, so I'm just sticking down as much as I can, cutting off a few things that I can. I think this is where I was like, why didn't I cut them? So I was like, oh, that's just white paper, so I might as well stick that down. It makes it sturdy. And then I was like, oh, yep, I can cut this one. Make sure I didn't cut that top corner, because that top corner is still sticking out as a border. And then I'm just making sure everything's tidy. And then I realized you can see that right-hand side. That looks terrible. I did not position it well enough for it to be a straight line up. I positioned it so that corner was off the page, and then it looks terrible. So then I spent forever trying to cut a straight line, because it's scissors, and you know, and you're just peeling it up like that, and really, can you not do it a better way, Lauren? Get there in the end. Good thing I don't always like perfection, so it's nice to have a bit of you know, an obvious hand cut side, but I do cut it so that it looks proportional to the rest of the layout. Just sticking down the corners so that it doesn't all peel up. You could totally, if it was going to go with the layout, scrunch or distress the edges of each layer. That would be cool, and you would obviously need to do that before you stuck everything down. So that is one way to go, and another way to go is what I've done here, and I use a few different black pens to add a few different bits I've done. I do like just a plain Sharpie. This one is a dash line border on the white paper, and then I do pull out a pen as well to do some borders, and I even take it one step further and border around the papers on the photo mats, the photo layers. Sort of sounds like, I know it's called a photo mat, but it sounds so weird when you just say it like that. So papers layering behind the photo. So I'm pulling out a thicker pen. I'm pretty sure it's my Pitt pen. Yeah. And it's actually a brush stroke, so definitely know that it's going to be nice and thick. It's also really nice to just draw a straight line. It just flows nicely. His in life definitely got his weird light from me, I would say. Taught him well, even in the womb before he came out. So here I am just adding a couple of different borders to the middle to the middle pattern papers, and that's going to be the layout. So hope you've enjoyed this lovely bright and wild layout, and it's inspired you to get out of your comfort zone, especially with the bordering, because that's something that, bordering 3 layers behind the original layer of paper is something that doesn't often or at all happen. So that was fun. I'll catch you next time.